Little Red Riding Hood. Once there was a little girl named Little Red Riding Hood. They called her this name because she always wore a red cloak and a little red hat on her head. Now Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother loved her very much. She lived about a mile away from Red Riding Hood. Whenever she had the time, Little Red Riding Hood went to visit her grandmother. One day her mother said to her, "Red Riding Hood, your grandmother is not feeling well. I want you to go and look after her." Red Riding Hood was glad to go. She wanted to cheer her grandmother up and make her feel better. "Take this bottle of wine and some cake for your grandmother. And remember, don't talk to strangers and do not go off the path." Little Red Riding Hood promised her mother to do as she asked. Then she quickly put on her red coat and hat and took the basket from her mother. "Bye, Mother," she said. "Goodbye, Little Red Riding Hood. Be careful now." Little Red Riding Hood set out along the path singing to herself. As she was walking along, she met a wolf along the way. He was nicely dressed and looked very kind. Little Red Riding Hood did not know that the wolf was a bad creature, so she was not afraid of him. He smiled nicely at her and said, "Hello, who are you?" "Oh, I am Little Red Riding Hood," she said. "And where are you going so early in the morning?" "To see my grandmother," she said. "And what do you have in your basket?" the wolf asked. "Cake and wine," she said. "My grandmother is sick, so I'm going to cheer her up." All along the wolf was thinking how nice Little Red Riding Hood would taste for his lunch. But when she told him about her grandmother, he thought he would eat the two of them, one for lunch and one for dinner. So he asked her, "Where does your grandmother live?" "About half a mile from here. The 3 big elm trees," she told him. Then he said to her, "Why don't you stop and get some flowers for your grandmother? They will cheer her up." This sounded good to Little Red Riding Hood, so she went off the path and into the forest to pick some flowers. While she was doing this, the wolf said goodbye and quickly left. He took a short cut through the woods and got to the grandmother's house. When she heard him knocking, Grandmother thought it was Little Red Riding Hood, so she let him in. Quickly he ate up the grandmother. Then he went into her drawer and took out one of Grandmother's long nightgowns and a frilly cap and put them on. Then he went into Grandmother's bed to lie down and wait for Little Red Riding Hood. When Little Red Riding Hood got there, she saw that the door was open. She thought this was strange as she went inside. "Grandmother, where are you?" she asked. "Over here," in a weak voice answered from her bed. Little Red Riding Hood put down her basket and hurried over to the bed. Grandmother was all covered up, except for her head. She had on a frilly nightcap, so Little Red Riding Hood could not see her too clearly. Grandmother did not look quite like herself. She must be very sick, Little Red Riding Hood thought. She drew up a chair and sat next to the bed. "Grandmother, are you all right?" Little Red Riding Hood asked. "Yes, dear," the wolf answered in a soft voice. "You must come closer so I can hear you better." Little Red Riding Hood came closer to the bed. "Grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear," replied Grandmother in a hoarse voice. "Grandmother, what a big nose you have," she said. "The better to smell you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what big teeth you have." "The better to eat you with," the wolf said. Then he sprang out of the bed and tried to catch poor Little Red Riding Hood. Only then did she find out that it was the wolf who was dressed up like her grandmother, trying to catch. She screamed so loudly that a woodcutter nearby heard her and came running. When he saw that the wolf was trying to catch Little Red Riding Hood, the woodcutter took his axe and killed him. "Where is my grandmother?" Little Red Riding Hood asked. The woodcutter saw how big the wolf's belly was and said, "I think I know." So he cut the wolf open and out popped Grandmother. "Thank you so much," she said to the woodcutter. "It was so dark in there." The woodcutter carried away the wolf, and Little Red Riding Hood spent the rest of the day with her grandmother. When it was time to leave, Little Red Riding Hood said goodbye to her grandmother. "Take care now, and remember, do not talk to any wolf you meet along the way," her grandmother told her. Little Red Riding Hood smiled. "I won't, Grandmother. Now I know that not all animals are as nice and kind as they look." Please subscribe to our channel if you like this video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.